Good morning, Year 1. Today we're going to be looking a little bit more at 2D shapes, and we're going to be thinking about how we can sort 2D shapes into different groups. So first, a little challenge for you to get your brains warmed up. Can you name the 2D shape that you can see on the surface, on the flat face of these shapes? So have a look carefully at these 3D shapes and see if you can find a shape, a 2D shape that is on one of the faces. Let's have a look then at the answers. So on the yellow shape, on the cuboid, you can see one of its faces is a rectangle. I wonder if you spotted the rectangle. Then on the cube, the green shape, we can see all of its faces are the shape of a square. On a cylinder, it has one face, well, two faces that are the shape of a circle. And a pyramid, I wonder if you spotted the triangle. Well done if you spotted all of those 2D shapes. Okay, so we're going to look at how 2D shapes can be sorted into different groups today. So here on the screen you can see two groups. There's a group labelled triangles and there's a group labelled squares. So I have sorted them into those two different groups. So you can see in the group of triangles, all of those triangles don't look exactly the same. They're different ways round. Some have got longer sides, some have got shorter sides, but they're all triangles because they all have three sides and they all have three corners. And then in the group of squares, again, they're different sizes. There's some big squares, there's some smaller squares, but they are all squares because they all have four sides that are the same length and they all have four corners. So when we're sorting our shapes, it doesn't matter about the size, it doesn't matter about the way round the shape is. What matters is the properties, so if it has how many sides it has or how many corners it has. Okay. So have a look at these three groups of shapes. Down the side there are some names of shapes and I want you to see if you could label those groups. So we've got circles, squares, rectangles or triangles. So you can pause the screen and decide which label would you put in which group. So look carefully at the shapes, look at the sides, look at the corners and decide which label would go with which group. Okay, let's have a look at the answers now. So you can see the first group were all triangles. They all have three sides, they all have three corners. The middle group were rectangles, and rectangles all have four sides and four corners, but remember rectangles have got two long sides and two short sides. So well done if you remembered that and you labelled that with rectangles. And the last one were circles. All of those shapes have one side and no corners, so they are circles. Well done. Okay, so another thing to have a think about now. I've got two groups of shapes there. I want you to see if you could think of a label to put in each box. So what could I label the first group as? What could I label the second group as? So you can pause the screen and have a little think. Look carefully at the shape. Think about how many sides, how many corners they've got. Let's have a look at the answer. So we have squares. They're all squares because they've got four sides, four corners, and what's really important about a square is all of those sides are the same length. And the other group are circles because circles have no corners and they have one side. Okay, getting a bit trickier now. We've got three groups. So could you label these three groups? Have a little think, pause the screen, and let's have a look at the answer. So the first group, squares. So remember squares have got four sides, squares have got four corners, and what's really important is the sides are all the same length. Then we have triangles, because triangles, all of those shapes have got three sides and three corners. And the last group, rectangles. So four sides, four corners, but what makes them rectangles is that they have two long sides and two short sides. So today's task In your home learning packs you should find these 3 sheets of paper, so you can choose one to have a go at, or you might challenge yourself to do 2 or maybe all 3. And the first task is to match up those groups of shapes with the correct label. Then the second task is to look at the group of shapes on the left and see if you can match it up with the group of shapes on the right. So you need to look carefully at the shapes and see if you can find the shapes that are the same. And the last task, so task number 3 on the sheet, there are some pictures using shapes, and your job is to look carefully and see what shapes have been used and see if you can fill in the information. So good luck, we can't wait to see your photographs of your completed work. Bye everybody.